What if the perfect love story was hiding a deadly secret? What if the one person you trusted most was never truly human? Tonight on Wakanda Tales Official, we take you deep into the heart of Africa, where ancient waters guard and mystery few dare to disturb. A tale of forbidden love, betrayal, and a death no mortal can escape. Before we plunge into the depths, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss a journey into Africa's hidden world, where every story is more than just a legend. Get ready to be captivated, unnerved, and perhaps haunted. This is the river goddess Lover, and her story is just beginning. In the heart of Lagos, where the city hums and the lagoon whispers ancient secrets, he found her, the woman of his dreams. But not all love stories end with a kiss. Some end with a curse. This is the story of the river goddess Lover, a tale of beauty, betrayal, and a death deeper than the ocean. His name was Chike, young, successful, admired. By 30, Chike had built an empire in Lagos. Skyscrapers bore his name, and his future gleamed as bright as the city lights. But there was one emptiness even his wealth could not fill. Love, a partner, a soul who could see the man beneath the suit. One evening, as the sunset bled gold into the waters of Five Cowries Creek, Chike took a walk by the lagoon, and that's where he met her. She sat by the water's edge, hair like black silk, eyes deep and endless. Her name, Amira. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. Not just beautiful, but otherworldly. A presence, a silence that pulled at something forgotten in his bones. In the heart of Africa's western shores, where the restless Atlantic breathes against the sands of Lagos, the city pulses with a rhythm both ancient and new. Glass towers scrape the heavens, neon lights flash like restless spirits, and yet, just beyond the sprawl, the lagoon holds her secrets. Lagos, they say, never truly sleeps, yet there are moments, just before the sun bows and the city exhales, when the veil between the worlds grows thin, when the chatter of the market fades, and the cries of hawkers are swallowed by the whisper of the tides. It was on such an evening that Chike walked by the lagoon. Chike, young, handsome, his skin the rich brown of the earth after rain. A man who carried success like a well-fitted suit. By 30, he was the envy of Lagos, a financial prodigy, a tycoon in the making. His face graced magazines, his name opened doors. Yet for all his wealth, Chike carried a quiet loneliness, tucked neatly behind his brilliant smile. Tonight, the pressures of boardrooms and balance sheets had driven him here, to the lagoon's edge, seeking what? Solitude? Or perhaps something unnamed. The air was thick with the scent of salt and earth. Lanterns from distant boats flickered like stars upon the dark water. Chike's leather shoes crunched against the sand, but he hardly noticed. His thoughts were elsewhere until he saw her. She sat by the water, her figure illuminated by the last light of the sun. Hair long, dark, and flowing like a river down her back. A dress, simple yet elegant, clung to her frame in a way that seemed woven by the waters themselves. But it was her smile that caught him first, warm, inviting, and tinged with something that felt ancient. Chike slowed, curiosity pricking at the edges of his mind. "Beautiful evening," he said, his voice casual, but his heart suddenly racing. She turned, and for a moment, just a moment, he thought he saw something shimmer in her eyes. A depth, a pool, as if the very waters had taken human form. "The most beautiful," she replied, her voice soft, melodic, but fleeting. He smiled, charmed by the simplicity of her words. I'm Chike, he offered, extending a hand. Amara, she said, her fingers brushing his, cool to the touch, yet electric. They spoke of little things at first, the city's chaos, the lagoon's calm. She listened more than she spoke, but when she did, her words carried a weight that belied her youth. The sky deepened to indigo, stars pricking the horizon. Still, they talked. And when finally he walked her to the edge of the city, the parting felt unnatural, like tearing silk. In the days that followed, Chike found himself returning to the lagoon. Always she was there. Amara. The name felt right in his mouth. A secret syllable he savored. Their meetings became routine, then ritual. Coffee shared on waterfront benches. Strolls through bustling markets where her laughter, light and musical, danced through the humid air. With Amara, Chike felt alive, as if his carefully curated world of mergers and million-dollar deals was a dream. And this was reality. Business thrived. Deals he'd once struggled to close now came effortlessly. Investors seemed charmed by him. Competitors stumbled at their own hurdles. Chike's star rose higher. He did not connect these blessings to Amara, not at first, but others noticed. The old women at the market, their eyes sharp beneath faded headscarves, would stop their gossiping as the couple passed. Some would whisper, some would click their tongues. A few would even mutter prayers under their breath. Chike dismissed it as village superstition until the signs grew harder to ignore. Amara never entered churches, though she would smile politely when he asked. She never crossed running water, always finding some excuse to detour around the small streams and gutters that webbed through the city. And sometimes she would disappear. Days would pass without word. Chike's calls would go unanswered. Then, as if nothing had happened, she'd reappear, serene, beautiful, unchanged. When he asked, she would only say, I had to return home. Home. He never asked where that was. Love, they say, is blind. And Chike was no exception. He proposed on a night when the full moon hung heavy over the lagoon. The water shimmered silver and endless, and the city's noise felt 1,000 miles away. Amara, he said, dropping to one knee in the sand, a small velvet box in hand, be my wife. She looked at him, long, searching, and for a heartbeat, something flickered in her gaze, something old and sorrowful. Then she smiled, a smile as radiant as dawn. Yes, Chike. The ring slid onto her finger, and somewhere, far out in the lagoon, the water stirred. They celebrated beneath the stars, wrapped in each other's arms, the future unfolding before them like an endless shining road. But in the shadows, where the light did not reach, unseen eyes watched, and the lagoon remembered. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Plans were drawn, venues were booked, the wedding date was set. A lavish ceremony by the lagoon, a tribute to the place where their love had begun. But with each step closer to the altar, a shadow deepened in Amara's eyes. A hesitation she could not hide, though she cloaked it in smiles. Chike, blinded by love and the clamor of congratulations, barely noticed. It was his aunt, old Mama Ngozi, who first voiced what others dared not. There's something not right, she whispered one afternoon, her voice thick with worry. She is beautiful, yes, but beauty is not always a blessing. Chike laughed, brushing aside her concerns. You see shadows where there are none, auntie. But shadows have a way of growing when ignored. It was at Mama Ngozi's insistence that Chike visited a local priest, an old man, bent with age, his eyes clouded but his spirit sharp. The priest listened without speaking, as Chike recounted his love story. When Chike finished, the priest simply said, "Bring me a piece of her clothing." Chike frowned. "Why?" "Because not all who walk among us are as they seem." Reluctantly, Chike returned with a silk scarf Amara had left in his car. The priest took it, held it to his forehead, and muttered words old as the earth. When he spoke again, his voice was low and trembling. "She is not of this world?" Cheek stiffened. "There are beings, spirits who take human form. Some seek love while others seek other things." Chike's laugh was forced, brittle. "Superstition, call it what you will," the priest said, "but marry her and you will pay a price." Chike left, the old man's warnings echoing in his mind. That night, he dreamt. He stood by the lagoon. The water was black, endless. From its depths rose Amara, her hair swirling like ink in the current, her eyes glowing faintly. "Come to me," she whispered. He woke, heart hammering. But love is a stubborn thing. Cheek pressed on. Invitations were sent, guests assembled, yet doubt gnawed at him. One evening, driven by a nameless dread, Chike followed Amara. She walked the narrow streets with purpose, her figure graceful, untouchable. Cheek kept to the shadows, heart pounding. She reached the lagoon where moonlight painted the water silver. Amara stood at the water's edge. Slowly, she slipped off her sandals, her feet sinking into the wet sand. She raised her arms and the lagoon answered. The waters parted, revealing a path of shimmering light. And Amara, beautiful, beloved Amara, stepped forward. Her form shimmered, blurred. Gone was the woman he knew. In her place stood a creature of water and mist, her skin luminous, her hair flowing in impossible currents. A river goddess. Cheek staggered back, a cry strangled in his throat. She turned and their eyes met. Not anger, not malice, only sorrow. "Now you see," she said, her voice a whisper on the wind. Chike fled. He ran through the darkened streets, out a drumbeat in his ears, the lagoon's whispers chasing him. Days later, he broke it off. No explanation, no farewell. He vanished from her life, leaving only silence behind. Amara did not chase him, but the lagoon stirred. Chike tried to move on. He married quickly, a woman of good stock, approved by his family. They said she would bring him peace, that she would mend the tear Amara had left in his soul. For a while, it seemed to work, but peace, like the lagoon surface, can be deceiving. It started with his business. Contracts dissolved, partners withdrew, clients vanished. The same easy fortune that had smiled on him now sneered. Scandals erupted, small at first, then larger, more vicious. False accusations, betrayals from trusted friends. Next came the sickness. His wife, healthy, vibrant, grew pale. Doctors were baffled. Tests returned normal, yet she withered before their eyes. At night, Chike dreamed. The lagoon, dark and endless, and from its depths, Amara, her eyes no longer sorrowful but cold, unforgiving. "He promised," she would whisper. Though he had made no vow, he would wake drenched in sweat, her voice still echoing in his mind. Desperation drove him back to the priest. "Help me," he begged. The old man shook his head. "You cannot run from death's ode to the spirits." Chike tried everything. He made sacrifices. He sought out healers, diviners, prophets, but the sickness deepened. His wife, a mere shadow, barely breathed. One evening, as dusk bled into night, Chike returned to the lagoon. He fell to his knees at the water's edge, tears carving paths down his cheeks. "Forgive me," he whispered. "I did not know." The water stirred. A figure emerged, shimmering, radiant, terrible. Amara. She did not speak. She only watched as he wept. Then slowly she extended a hand. Chike, broken, lost, reached for her. The water closed around him, gentle at first, then firm. Witnesses would later claim they saw him walk into the lagoon, unresisting, as if into the arms of an old lover. His body was never found. Some say he was claimed by the waters. Others whisper that he still walks the shoreline. A cautionary tale for those who forget the old ways. As for Amara, she vanished. But on nights when the moon is full and the waters calm, some say you can see her waiting for the next heart foolish enough to love what was never meant to be tamed. In Africa, they say, not all beauty is a blessing. Some deaths are older than the earth. Some promises, even the unspoken ones, must be kept. Remember the story of Chike and the river goddess. And when you walk by the waters, walk with care. Thank you for journeying with us through the tale of the river goddess lover, a story of love, betrayal, and the timeless power of the unseen. From Chike's first encounter by the lagoon to the chilling revelation of Amara's true nature, and finally to the heavy price he paid for a love that defied the natural order, we are reminded that not all beauty is meant to be touched, and not all promises can be broken without consequence. If this story moved you, made you think, or gave you a chill, we would love to hear from you. What was your favorite part of the story? Was it the first meeting under the sunset, the haunting transformation at the lagoon, or the final tragic ending? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one and your voice matters. And if you're hungry for more powerful African myths, legends, and untold stories, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next from Wakanda Tales Official. We have many more journeys waiting just beneath the surface. Until then, remember, not everything beautiful was meant for mortal hands. Stay curious, stay brave. See you in the next tale.